Alright, now this video is gonna be like the follow-up video from that the previous like perfectionism one that I made a couple videos back. And I think towards the end of that video I was talking about this idea of a cutoff point as like a way to catch yourself in the act of being a perfectionist, and therefore being able to address it and eventually like stop that cycle of perfectionism. So let me explain how this works. It's a fairly simple concept. So basically, if you're a perfectionist, you know that if you get set some sort of task, you literally won't stop until it's perfect, right? And so that's where the problem comes in. I think in the last video I was talking about perfectionism being like a silent killer, and so by that I think I'll just briefly explain it again. It's just like it takes time away from the things that really matter to you, and so you need to have a cutoff point, a place where you can actually see that you're good enough, that you're ready to stop, right? Because perfectionism, ultimately, I feel like it comes out of a place of fear, a fear of being rejected, a fear of not being good enough, that sort of thing. And so if you and perfectionists, they want to not have to deal with that fear at all, and so they'll just keep on doing it until it's perfect, until that possibility of failure is zero. But realistically, that's just not possible, and so you'll just end up going on and on and on. And so what you need to do is establish a cutoff point, a point where you can look at yourself and say, nah, that's good enough, I'm done, that's enough, it's fine, I don't need to do any more. So let me give you an example. Let's say you're like me, you're revising for your like exams or something. Let's say you're revising chemistry, for example. You don't really know how much you actually know, like, to revise. Like, yeah, you might have like made like a little sketch up of like a revision list. If you're like a true perfectionist like me, you would have like gone on like a 3-hour journey looking at the whole chemistry A-level specification, judging out like going sifting through every single thing on that list and deciding I know it or I don't, and then just like putting that all into some like Word document. If you're a true perfectionist, that's probably something that you would do, but that is a complete waste of time. Do not do that. A better way of going about it is do a practice paper, okay? And I don't care if you haven't revised, just do a practice paper and see what you know, okay? And most importantly, see what you don't know. See the places that are a bit shaky, the places where you're like losing marks. Even the places that you do gain marks, just have a look and make sure you're like absolutely sure you know why you got the mark there. And then after you've done that practice paper, then you can create a revision list based on that solely. That completely shortcuts this whole process of like looking through everything. And what you can do, you can create a list of just the stuff that you don't know, that you definitely don't know, and you can actually judge it off something concrete instead of just thinking back, yeah, no, I don't really remember the mechanism of elimination for alcohol or whatever it was. I don't even know, bro. But like, instead of just having to remember it, you actually have like concrete evidence telling you, I know this, I don't know this, right? And then from there, what you can do is you can just go have a look at that stuff. And probably a good example here of like a simple means of a cutoff point is just a timer. Just set yourself like 15 minutes, I get to revise this stuff. And then after that, do another practice paper. See if you can, if you actually remember that stuff now. And what you want to do is you want to kind of continue the cycle until you reach a point where the mark that you get in the practice paper is sufficient. And now this is the actual cutoff point that I'm trying to get to. So let's say, even if you do have like an ambitious goal of like an A star, there is actually some mark out there that is good enough. So let's say the mark to get an A star in chemistry is 80%. Let's just say that. Let's say I want to, comfortably get an A star. This is an ambitious goal, no? So let's say I want to get 85%. At least now I have a cutoff point, okay? As soon as I get 85% on a practice paper, call it quits. You're good enough now. You're good to go. You got an A star comfortably. There's no more need to revise. That's the sort of mindset you need to adopt. Now, I think when I first, thought of this concept, I had a couple reservations about it, and let me just try and address those. Right, here we go. So this is a bit more specific to me, but it can kind of, enlighten you on like what goes on in the mind of a perfectionist. So here's one of the problems that I put down. So we haven't done all the content yet. So if I do an A-level past paper, I'm gonna have to skip a lot of the questions. That's one of the things that I put down, because right now I'm in like my first year, so I haven't actually done all the content yet to be able to do the proper A-level past paper. So in that case, the simple fix is just do an AS level practice paper. Now, a thing that follows on from that is, wait, what if the A-level specification doesn't exactly match up with what we're doing, or the AS thing is like a bit easier? But at the end of the day, there's gonna be some shortcomings. I don't know if that's what you call it. It's like what's like the word where you're trying to like agreement, it's like a compromise. Yeah, you're gonna have to make compromises. It can't all be perfect. Yeah. So sometimes you are just gonna have to settle with doing an AS level paper, or even doing that A level paper, but just not considering, like, just skip those questions that you haven't like done the content for yet, or and then just like factoring it out of like the mark that you get. Then that's a better way of doing it. Even if it's not perfect, at least you have some sort of benchmark, some way of being able to judge it, to actually be able to judge if you have done enough. Because if you don't have this cutoff point, then you can just go on and on forever. Now, okay, so another concern I had is, one of the subjects I take is philosophy, right? And it's a bit more difficult to do practice papers for this, because I don't really have like a proper mark scheme, if you get what I mean. It's a bit more subjective, the field of philosophy. And so I don't really know if my marking is actually valid. And so the only real way I can get, concrete evidence that I've done good enough is if I actually get it marked by the teacher. But if I try and do that all right now before the exams, the teachers, they already got like everyone else's past papers and shit that they're handing in. So the likelihood they're going to get yours as well is kind of low. So this is probably something that you need to think of in advance. You need to be doing like practice papers for subjects like essay subjects like philosophy. You need to be doing that kind of all year round, getting like consistent feedback and things, instead of just giving a shit ton of past papers to your teacher like right before the exam, because that's just not going to work. But what you should really focus on is try marking your philosophy paper yourself, then go hand it to your teacher and see how they judge it, and compare like the mark that you gave versus the mark that the teacher gave, and try and start thinking a bit more like how the teacher marks. So eventually you don't have to actually hand it into that teacher to mark it. You can just mark it by yourself, because your marking is now effectively similar enough to how the teacher's is. So I think that's a good way to get around this. Obviously that's a bit more long term, but I think that's what you got to start thinking of right now. So this is one of the lessons I learned from my year 12 mock, so maybe you can take that on board as well. Now, another perfectionist-esque concern is, what if the past paper that I do doesn't have some particular topic question on it that I'm actually really bad on, and somehow on the actual test, most of it is on that topic. So basically, in other words, like, let's say I do a practice paper, I get my 85%, I'm like, oh shit, okay, I'm calm then, I don't need to revise it anymore. And then I just park chemistry to a side and I just, do the other more important stuff, whatever. But then in the actual test, let's say some topic that didn't come up in that practice paper comes up and I have no idea what it is. I didn't even know that I, had any problems with it because I got to 85%, I thought I was chilling, right? What happens then? And I think it's a bit difficult to say, but I think you're just gonna have to take the loss if that happens. And if you really want to minimize that chance of a loss, then just do more practice papers. Maybe set the benchmark in like the cutoff point instead from getting one practice paper of 85% to three. Even though it is a higher cutoff point and you're gonna need to spend more time on it, you still have a cutoff point at the end of the day. And so at least if you've done three practice papers compared to one, the chance, like the coverage of material that you've like of the questions that you've done in these practice papers should hopefully cover what would be in the exam. If you do like a wide range of things, all based on the same exam board, so you shouldn't be doing like edXL chemistry if your actual exam board is AQA. Just be doing the AQA like practice papers, but like just do like three of the past papers, and then hopefully you should have like a solid foundation and if you're getting 85% plus on those, I think you should be fine. If you're not, that's just genuinely unlucky, and there really isn't much you can do about that. And I feel like the time spent to try and make sure 100% that you're good enough is not worth the extra percent that you get. I wish I had like a proper graph that I could draw, but I guess I'm just gonna have to like do it with my hands here. So imagine like on the y-axis you have like the percent that you get in the exam, and on the x-axis you have the time spent. So let's say at the start your revision is probably going to be quite effective, like it's going to go up and up like this, right? But then as you do more and more revision, the more time you spend, the less that thing's going to go up, and it's eventually going to start to plateau the more time you spend. And what your cutoff point is that point along here where you've said, oh no, I want to stop it when it comes to this many hours. Or you can set it across from the y-axis, like I want to have the cutoff point when I get to 85%. So those are two ways you can kind of set cutoff points, either by time or by the actual result that you get. I feel like the result that you get is probably a better way of setting the cutoff point than the time that you spend. Although both are useful. It's just that having it set on the result is probably a bit more concrete than the time, because the time that you spend doesn't exactly, like, it's not all time that you spend is spent equally, if you get what I mean. Like 4 hours of revision for like some average guy is not going to be the same 4 hours of revision for some like locked in guy who's in like a completely like in the zone type shit, like he's got no distractions. Like it's going to be very different. So I think a better way to judge it is off the result. Let's see what else concerns I had. Okay, what if I don't understand the solution for like some question when I'm doing the past paper? And a really easy fix for that is just looking for these exam walkthroughs you can find online. You can find YouTube videos of these everywhere. You could probably find them on like PMT or just some other website. So I don't think that should be a concern. Now the other thing is, how do you actually set this cutoff point? Like here is like the questions like, does A-level grade boundaries translate to A-level past papers, or the paper where I skipped the question? So like if it says like yeah, you need to get 80% to get an A star for your A level, but then I do an AS level paper, does it actually translate? And to be honest, you're just gonna have to just judge well enough where you think it's gonna be. It's not gonna be perfect. And like you shouldn't really spend too long thinking about it anyway. Like just be really what do you call it? Just like just quick about it. Just say like 70% or 75% or 80%. Like just like make like just choose like a nice round number that you want to get for that subject and just get that. Don't spend too much time thinking about it. Um, yeah. Okay. One last concern, I guess, is like how far in advance you want to use this cutoff point technique. Let's say your exams are next week, um, and so on the first day of this week, you go revise chemistry, you get your 85%, and you're like, oh shit, it's fine. I'm gonna stop. I'm gonna go revise something else. I'm gonna do something else. But then what happens if you go into the exam for chemistry the following week and you realize, oh shit, I kind of forgot how this shit works. I remembered it like a week ago. I was on top of it, but now I kind of forgot. And to be honest, I think like you shouldn't do this. There's like a fine line between like, doing it too late and not actually being able to revise the shit that you got wrong from the past paper, but there's also doing it too early and forgetting it if you just haven't revised it in a bit. So I guess it comes down to like that little and often sort of mentality, because if you just do all of it in one go then stop, then I don't know if it's going to be the most effective. So maybe just do like one past paper every 2-3 days. That might be a better way of structuring it, instead of just getting all your past papers done on one day. Yeah. But to be honest, I think if you're getting like that 85% consistently, you're probably not gonna forget. And I don't think this is like a valid enough concern to not use this technique. So yeah. That's the basics of how this cutoff technique works for like overcoming perfectionism, especially when it comes to revising. And this can probably be used in a number of different areas, but I don't know, I just thought it was something that I'd share with you because it's definitely helped me a lot. Because if I didn't have this cutoff point, I'd literally just start going on tangents upon tangents. But if I just remember that graph of like the amount of time spent versus how much my grade goes up, if I just remember that and just think, wait, do I actually realistically need to know this for the exam? If not, I'm not going to waste my time on it. It is a waste of time at the end of the day. It is just some form of procrastination. And so, yeah, just keep that in mind. Just remember, how much am I actually getting out of this for the amount of time it's like I'm spending, and also, have I reached my cutoff point? And if so, then there's no reason for me to continue wasting my time on this. Yeah, okay, I'm not gonna yap any longer. That's what I had to say. See ya.